One. So, welcome back to Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is a dear friend and brother, uh, Amanbir. He's an amazing acupuncturist, really, really powerful Kundalini Yoga teacher, instructor, and he's been training hundreds of people at this point with his teacher Gurmukh, and I am so honored to have you today, brother. Welcome on.
Thank you, brother. Great to be here. Great to chat with you right now.
Yeah, I'm you're coming in from you're calling in from South Africa, right?
Yeah, from Cape Town. So here's where I call home, but I get to travel so much that I just make every place I go to home.
Amazing, man. Amazing. And just a little background on how we met. It was this beautiful retreat in Tulum that I went to, and it was very synchronistic because I had recently found you on Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, this guy looks super cool. I'd love to meet him one day." And then here I am in Tulum visiting a friend, and then you were just there, and I was like, "Oh, what's up, man?" So it was,
Yeah, that was the last time I was in Mexico.
yeah, it was super cool. And then we hung out and went on a couple of adventures and stuff, and it was just a really really fun way to connect. And now I'm in Las Vegas, you're in South Africa in Cape Town. I mean, we're just holding down different hemispheres, you know?
Yeah.
Cool, cool, man. I'm really stoked to have you here. I was thinking today we could talk about your journey, how you got into Kundalini Yoga, um, your lifestyle, because your lifestyle is so unique and beautiful. You travel all over the world. You go to India often. You go all over, right? Teaching,
Yeah.
teaching, teaching the teachings of Kundalini. We recently had Nicholas Geo on, who's also a Kundalini yoga teacher, and you know him as well,
From
right?
Philly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it'll be really interesting to hear your perspective on some things, and let's see how it flows today. Maybe who knows what'll come up, you know? So it'll be really awesome.
Great, good. I look forward to chatting with you.
Cool, man. So yeah, just um for the new listeners and any listeners, like what can you share a little bit about your story, how you found Kundalini Yoga, how you got connected with Gurmukh, and how you transitioned into this beautiful kind of dream for a lot of people the way you live, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm great. I'm grateful for this journey for sure.
Hmm.
When I first started Kundalini Yoga, let's see, I was 22 years old
Hmm.
and I was in engineering school. And so I went to a small university called Cooper Union in New York City for engineering.
Hmm.
And in that program, we had a teacher. Her name is Tuesday, but I don't know where she is since that program because she moved back to California. And so I remember my senior year, without the Hatha yoga, I noticed I definitely felt more stressed.
Mm.
And I found that doing yoga and alignment and body awareness exercises just really helped to with my sense of endurance for that program of
Hmm.
engineering.
Hmm.
And so then I remember I felt like so much pressure. I felt so stressed. And
Hmm.
so I was like, okay, let me go online and look for ways to volunteer. Because I was just like, I didn't even think of going to other schools of yoga.
Hmm.
It was more so like, but what came to mind was let me volunteer somewhere. So I went on this website, Craigslist,
Uh-huh.
and they had the volunteer section. And under the first headline in the volunteer section was free yoga for volunteer service. So I was like, oh, that sounds great. I get to get some yoga and I get to volunteer. Wonderful. So I
Nice.
contact them and they got back to me right away. And it just so happened that it was a Kundalini Yoga studio, but I didn't know anything about Kundalini Yoga. They didn't tell me they were a Kundalini Yoga studio. I just knew it was yoga.
Uh-huh.
And I just kind of put it all under one umbrella.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay.
And
So that was in New
yeah,
York. That was in where did you say that was?
yeah, that was in New York City. Yeah. So that was
Okay.
while I was
Okay.
through Cooper Union my last year.
Cool.
And that was at a studio which doesn't exist anymore, but it's called Universal Force Healing Center.
Cool name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was on 24th and Broadway. And it was like it became a refuge for me, definitely. And so I
Nice.
remember just walking into the studio and speaking to the manager at the time named Chris. And he was just like, he was so bright. Everyone I was meeting there was so bright. And I just loved the effervescence of all the people that were coming in and out, the teachers and the students, that I really felt like, oh, this is my home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so then I pretty much, when I didn't have to study, when I wasn't in school, I was there volunteering. I
Mm-hmm.
just loved it so much. I loved the environment so much. So that's really what began Kundalini Yoga for me. So they had this policy, I think it was a long time ago, but but they had this policy. I think it was like something like you had to volunteer for a week at least before you could take a class. But he made an exception for me, Chris, and he was just like, okay, tomorrow, why don't you come to class?
Right
And so
on.
I went to the class, and I invited one of my good friends from college, named Emma, she's like a black belt. So she's used to more like endurance exercises and breath work. So she came with me, and we did the class. And I think, and like that was a long time ago, but I think he did the this one yoga set, um, which is a yoga set that involves a lot of pranayama, breathing exercises, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fast movements and a lot of fast pranayams. And I had no really like breath work experience.
Right.
So I remember by the end of that class, I felt so dizzy. I was just like, whoa.
Right.
And my friend Emma, she was great. She was like, "Oh, I feel really good. I feel very clear and energized." And I was like, "I feel good, but I just can't stand still."
Uh-huh.
And I was like leaning on her, I was like leaning on the wall. It was like maybe an hour of dizziness.
Yeah. Wow. It really shook some stuff up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But it was just like that just gave me such an experience. So I was just like, wow, there's something really magical in that. And then after that, I pretty much I did take more classes. Actually, not that many though, honestly. I more so just loved volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
I loved helping out and as much as I could. And so then and that was I think that was March of 2005. And then speed ahead to June 2005, summer solstice. Chris and a lot of the teachers of the studio um, were going out to New Mexico for a big summer solstice Kundalini Yoga festival.
Mm-hmm.
And they left me in charge of the yoga studio. They gave me the keys, and they left me
Wow.
in charge of the yoga studio as a volunteer.
Cool. That's a
And
big step right there.
yeah, and I loved it because I love to help. So there was one class where there was a classroom full of students, but the teacher was in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, what do I do? So I remember calling Chris. Thankfully, he had a reception and he was just so calm. He was just like, okay, here's what you do, just lock the front door. And then you see a book on the shelf that says Kundalini Yoga. And I was like, yes. He's like, okay, good. Teach something from that book. And I was like, okay.
Uh-huh.
So
That's
I
one way
think,
to get initiated.
yeah. Now I had taken a few Kundalini classes like in that time from March to June, but it wasn't like every day. It definitely wasn't like I probably could count on maybe one hand or two hands how many classes I had taken, but
Mm-hmm.
I taught what was in that book. And I remember the experience of that was because I had no experience teaching before that in
Mm-hmm.
this lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
And
sure. Just this lifetime.
Yeah. And I remember just like following the instructions. I read it. I think I paced it well. And I just remember seeing the transformation in people in the
Mm,
practice.
mm,
And yeah, I have a scientist background studying
mhm,
engineering, and a huge background in science. So for me, it's like I approached Kundalini Yoga almost as like a science experiment because it was just like, okay, here I am, no experience with Kundalini Yoga, really very few reference points. I'm
mhm,
just going to teach the Kundalini Yoga set as it's written. Let's see what the experience is, and I get to see the tangible difference in the people in the class. And I was just like, that was the moment for me, though, that really actually, that's when I fell in love with Kundalini Yoga, was from actually teaching.
mm, mhm,
So before
mhm,
that, it was like cool, but actually, as I told you, I really liked the volunteering part more.
mhm,
But it was in that moment that I got to see, like, wow, if I have no experience really,
mhm,
and I can just share something, a little bit of Kundalini Yoga with others, and to see this type of transformation in them, wow, imagine if I apply myself, what kind of transformation will happen to myself?
mm,
And so
absolutely.
that's what actually, like, that's what created the biggest spark for me.
So
But I
can you,
think it was a good foundation.
yeah, can you talk a little bit about what transformations you were seeing? Was it subtle? Was it like, were you seeing their aura? What was shifting in some of these people?
Uh, I would say back then, like what I remember from that first class was just to see how joyful people were after the practice.
Mm, mm-hmm,
Like it was a real tangible thing, like just to see how joyful, and people after the class saying like, well, how they had such a powerful experience, and how they felt so good. They felt um, more centered or more aligned or more in their sense of vitality or joy. And it was just like, that's incredible that, you can follow this program and you can feel so good doing these exercises in this
mm-hmm.
particular sequence.
Right, right. Yeah, it's profound. I mean, I know the first time when I took a Kundalini yoga class, I don't I was trying I don't think I've ever done the Kriya again. Maybe you know which one it is. We were rolling a lot, like a log roll during the Kriya.
Hmm.
And uh like literally like with our hands on our side, rolling side to side was part of the Kriya. And do you know which one that is?
Well, there's a lot. It could be by itself. Those are just called bundle rolls.
Okay.
And
Uh,
so sometimes that can be done by itself, and then it's in a few different kriyas, like circulatory system, magnetic field, where you're pointing the toes to begin,
yeah, I think
and
it
then
was
the
that
later
one.
on the kriya.
I think it was the magnetic field. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Okay. Yeah, that I mean, I remember the teacher telling us, okay, we're gonna balance the magnetic field. I mean, this was back in 2000, I think 13, 14. So yeah, a while back. And uh, I remember sitting at the end of the class and she's playing the gong, and I just had this galactic experience, where I was just like, what is happening? Like I first saw like this
Blast
light.
off.
Yeah, like I saw this light um in my third eye region, and then something opened up, and I just started seeing like past lifetime regressions, and it was absolutely profound. So I mean, have you heard of these kind of things happening for people?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It was kind of well, that like skipping ahead. I think it was 2000, and when was that? That was 2006 or 2007. I forget, but 2006, 2007, I started teaching at another studio, which was a bookstore in New York City. Doesn't exist either anymore. It was called East West Books, and it was
Mm,
an esoteric bookshop. And there, when I started teaching there, the majority, like not everyone, but I would say a good portion of students were either channelers or mystics or mediums. So there, definitely, there is just like I remember having this one student who come up every class, and she was like, "Today there was a purple reindeer above you," and I'm like, "Oh, what does that mean?" She's like, "Shh." I'm like, "Okay, thank you."
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, I was like, "Okay, cool, thank you, got it, thank you."
Oh,
Some
that's
days
so
it was the
cool.
purple lion, and then she's like, one day she was like, very interesting. It was the purple stag. It's like,
Oh
okay,
wow.
cool, thank you.
Wow, that's like peyote medicine. That's powerful. That's powerful. Wow. Okay. So yeah, so just to bring it back, you had started teaching from while they were away at summer solstice, which is a huge event, right? It's like when all the
Yeah,
Kundalini yogis gather in New Mexico where the main ashram is, and um and so everybody from the studio went to that, and then I'm sure they came back like supercharged, right?
yeah. They came back supercharged. And what was so amazing was like I also had a lot of fun teaching. And so at the time, Chris was doing there was a community service class. So like every Friday, it was called the Healing Circle. So it was like a circle and just doing meditations. And although there is actually a technical healing circle in Kundalini Yoga, this was more of a meditation circle, but it was called the Healing Circle.
Cool.
And people could pay whatever they could. So
Hmm.
it was so he was getting busier in his schedule. So he was just like, how would you like to start covering for me for a lot of the healing circles? So I covered a lot of them. And then that class, it started to grow. And it was such a beautiful experience being able to teach all these meditations. And, I not done teacher training yet. So I really just applied myself as as a scientific background, looking into these manuals, started taking more classes, and putting together what would be appropriate for meditations for this weekly circle.
Hmm.
So I was teaching a lot. Like there were some weeks where he would teach a class, but many times I was just teaching, and I loved it.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
Well, let's see. After that, so that was June 2005, and then started teaching weekly. But then in September, I remember there was teacher training going around.
Okay.
And by that point, I was like technically staff at Universal Force Healing Center. So
Okay.
I had an employee discount for teacher training.
Oh, beautiful. That
But
helps.
as a side note, what's really interesting, so my teacher training was in 2005, and I remember the full price of it was like $3,200. And that's still to this day, that's like pretty much what the price is. So there's
It
like no
is.
inflation hasn't touched teacher training
I
in
know. I
over
know.
20 years.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting, right? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I paid, and it is worth every penny.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just for me it was 9 months, and it like was like a full rebirth, you know?
Yeah.
What was the
Yeah. So
training like for you?
I was able to do a payment plan, which is great. That really helped me to be able to do that because after engineering school, for a while, I wasn't working. Like I just
Hmm.
graduated and was just like, okay, I don't have any work. And then I started doing some work for the yoga studio, but still, that wasn't enough to cover, teacher training even with the discount.
Hmm.
So, so they put me on a payment plan, and that was great. So then I did teacher training, and I started. And then what I loved about my teacher training program was the lead teacher, Universal Force. His name was Guru Nam, but he goes now by Joseph Michael Levery, and he
Okay.
teaches another school of yoga called Nam Yoga now.
Hmm.
And then there was Guru Dharam, who now I get to like work with and teach with for therapy training, which is amazing for Kundalini Yoga
Cool.
therapy training.
Nice.
Then Mahan Rishi Singh, who's like I don't know, he's like a embodiment of a heart chakra.
Wow.
Have you ever met him, Mahan Rishi?
I don't think so. Not yet.
He teaches he teaches out in Jersey and Pennsylvania, and um,
Okay. That's
yeah,
where
and
my
he hosts
dad
teacher
lives, so
trainings out there.
that would be cool
Yeah,
to find out where he's at.
yeah, he's such a loving teacher. And then Krishna Kar, I'm sure you know Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
amazing.
and so Krishna was great. Yeah, she was like the powerhouse, like so full of joy, and I really connected with Krishna. And then we also had Guru Charan Singh. Do
Wow.
you know Guru Charan?
I don't know Guru Charan.
So Guru Charan, because this was Kundalini Yoga Research Institute training,
Mhm.
and so the level one manual, that's what Guru Charan wrote. Like
Okay.
he pretty much, there are other authors and editors, of course, but he wrote that book.
Wow. Okay, so you guys had a full powerhouse of teachers over there.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
yes,
that's like the Avengers squad of Kundalini Yoga.
yeah. And then also we had like a little cameo. Like she came in just for like 1 or 2 hours of Guru Tejkar, who's from I think San Diego, or is Guru Tej from San Diego or LA? Maybe she's from LA. But Guru Tej is like she's high energy, so it was really fun.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that must have been so how was that experience for you? Like what happened for you personally?
Well, for me personally, I loved it because I loved getting different perspectives. Because it's the same thing with engineering schools, just like you have so many different professors. You have different professors for physics, different professors for organic chemistry, and it's nice to get the different perspectives.
Hmm.
And the same thing I found within the teacher training is that although each were given like a set topic they would teach, but a lot of the yoga teachings of Kundalini Yoga are kind of woven together.
Hmm.
So it was great because Guru Dharam has a shamanic background.
Okay.
And then Guru Charan is very intellectual. Krishnakar is like powerful, high energy. Maharishi is so like uplifting. So it was like a totally different space with each of the trainers.
Hmm.
And I appreciated the whole package.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so you kind of took
Yeah.
what resonated and what you liked and made it your own, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually, though, at that time, I would say like I did all the work and I was definitely in it, but also I was still working at the yoga studio. So there were times that I'd have to step out of the training here and there. Um, so there were definitely parts that I missed, honestly,
Hmm. Hmm. Well,
but I
I
still
mean, that's
graduated.
normal. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because with the level one immersion, or not, it was a 9 month program.
Hmm.
So even with the 9 month program, there's so much information in the book,
So much.
and it really is like a buffet with all the different options, and practically you can't put everything on your plate.
Hmm.
And what I found for myself and for my classmates, and now teaching teacher trainings, is that kind of everyone kind of branches out on their own. So what I mean by that is just like some may have a deeper relationship with sound and mantra. So then they
Right.
start, reviewing that chapter more, taking more trainings for sound and mantra, and then kind of incorporating that into their daily practice. Some more into the anatomy, some more into the posture and alignment. So there's
Hmm.
different ways that people can kind of navigate. Whereas level one is just to give the foundation to teach, but then each teacher kind of develops on their own. So
Right.
there's definitely things, even if you're in the room, you will still miss.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. But that's the beauty of it. There's so many branches that you can kind of
Yeah.
take. There's one thing that resonated a lot for me was the Sat Nam Rasayan.
Mm,
We just kind of touched on it, but that's like a really beautiful healing modality that can be kind of like continuing education after level one training. And I've
yeah.
taken some of those classes, and it's basically like a healing with presence, right? Is that how
Yeah.
you would describe it? Like you're not you don't even really nobody needs to touch the client. You're just there, and holding space and holding the intention for them to go through the healing that they need to.
Yeah. It's one of those things that with Sat Nam Rasayan, I was also like, I felt like I started at a great time with Kundalini Yoga because this was like 2005. And then, um, so in my teacher training, uh, Siddhi Satkar was actually like, she was on her pathway to start teaching teacher trainings on her own, but she had to assist in this teacher training. So she was the assistant teacher.
Uh-huh.
And so because of that, because she was assisting, there was one day where we had to do squats, and then her like there it was an odd number of people, students in the room, so she had to do squats with me, and then
Uh-huh.
we became really good friends because she was teaching in Universal Force, and then I was already working there, and I would see her a lot, and so then we just really connected, and so we're still friends. We teach New Year's Eve together every year for the last like 15 years in New York.
Wow.
So with Siri Sat, she introduced me to go to like Kundalini Yoga East, and there, which is another Kundalini Yoga studio in New York City. It still exists. And Guru Dev, who was the last master of Sat Nam Rasayan,
Right.
he would go there at least once a month. So
Mm-hmm.
I would always get to go to his classes when he was there, and start learning Sat Nam Rasayan pretty much right away, even without even knowing what it was technically. Like he didn't expect. I don't remember him ever really explaining it in those classes. Like he would explain how to do it, but not what it was.
Ah, okay. Yeah, and that's kind of
And but
how
I loved
Yogi
it.
Bhajan taught him, right? Like it was through presence
Yeah,
and just through telepathic communication. He gave him a lot of the teachings. And he passed just a few years ago, right?
yeah. He passed. Yeah, he passed just a few years ago, and yeah, I got to go to his house a year after he passed. So that was 2000. So I think he passed. He must have passed in 2020 because I went to his house in San Cristobal in 2021.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he would do some bigger immersions in Mexico. Did you ever go to any of those?
No, I never went to his immersions in Mexico. I did get to go to his Sat Nam Rasayan immersions in Italy, Perugia,
Oh, wow.
like maybe like 4 or 5 times, and those are great. Like it was just really because that was nice because there were also it was like a good balance. Like he would go a little bit deeper into the philosophy of Sat Nam Rasayan a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like it just helped to add more layers to what I was already practicing. But what I found with doing it, with practicing sound neuroscience, is that it just helped me to become more aware, more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I started actually understanding it more, not through Guru Dev, but actually through another teacher, Mahan Kiran.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Golden Bridge first opened, they had a Satnam Rasayan class with Mahan Kiran. And wow, it was such a powerful class. I remember I had my four wisdom teeth pulled out
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's painful.
at the age of
I've done that too, and
23.
all four at the same time. It's no joke.
Yeah. So at the age of 23, all four pulled out. I was fully awake for that procedure. And it was like months of healing. It was so painful. But I remember going to her class at the point where my face had healed, at least externally. So I didn't have like the chipmunk cheeks, you know?
Oh yeah.
And sitting down in her class, and she asked, "Who wants to be a guinea pig?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll be the guinea pig." And she's
Right.
like, "Okay, everyone, let's go into the space of sense." And she's like, "Do you all sense that? Do you feel the pressure in both sides of his jaw?
Oh
Let's
wow.
work to release it now." And I remember like, wow, this stuff is really cool. Okay, now I understand what Sound Science is about. Got it.
Okay, I'm getting
And that was
chills. I'm getting chills
yeah,
because that's kind of like, it's like a collective nervous system is what's happening in that situation. You're
yeah,
like making a collective consciousness of the group, right? And everybo's tuning into your pain and
yeah.
and transmuting it. That's
I
something
kind of
that
I kind of take it as like a Buddhist approach, because you see the Buddha behind you,
uh-huh,
but it's just like it's really like there is no separation. Like we're all one. So like everything happening in the world is happening inside of us. And
right.
if you could just tune yourself in, you can start to sense these things. And it's not like Reiki, it's not like any other system where you're trying to change anything. All you're simply doing is observing.
Right.
And I kind of think about it like if there's a kid throwing a temper tantrum, you could yell at them, that's probably not going to make it better.
No,
You
probably
could
not.
ignore them. That also probably won't make it better. But if you just simply like look at them and like, I see you, I understand what's going on. It's kind of like the kid gets startled, like, what? You see me?
Hmm.
And then the temper tantrum can dissolve or transform because it's simply acknowledged. And
Right.
that's my perception of Sat Nam Rasayan is really just like that acknowledgement of what we may not be fully present and conscious of, but you bring your consciousness there because everything inside of you is around you.
Exactly. And so what were you feeling while everybody was tuning into to your wisdom teeth?
Oh, I was just relaxed. I wasn't practicing Sat Nam Rasayan while I just had to relax and they were sensing me. So
Right,
that
but
that was like the
were
cool
you
part.
feeling the pain subsiding? Were you
Oh yeah, yeah. When they were releasing it, yeah, I definitely felt. And then I'd actually, yeah. After that, I never had the jaw pain again. So
it completely went away?
yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful practice. And so do you practice it on clients ever nowadays?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do use it in my healing practice. I just don't advertise it,
Hmm.
but it's not like how do I put it? It's just like it's something that you don't turn off. It's just like using basically center science meditative awareness.
Hmm.
So there's so many opportunities just to kind of tune in. So even sitting on an airplane, just tune in. What's going on inside yourself? When I'm with the client, with a patient, it's just like tune in, connect within. When I'm not speaking to them or doing diagnostics. So it's definitely something that, and also while teaching as well, is just tuning into the space.
Hmm.
So it's not for everyone. Like I have a really good friend. Um, who came to the immersion in Perugia because she wanted to be the Sat Nam Rasayan teacher for her country,
Oh wow.
and it just is not. It just didn't line up with her personality.
Okay.
Like her personality is exactly as it needs to be and is beautiful and is bold, and it didn't match with the sensitivity of Sat Nam Rasayan.
Mm,
And so I remember her going to Guru Dev, and he was like, "No, you won't get this."
mm. That must have been tough.
And she was so funny about it. She was like, "He said I won't get it. That's okay.
Oh,
I'm having a
okay.
good time."
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a great way to approach it. I love that.
Yeah. So you definitely can teach, you can be a great healer without practicing sound sign, but for those that it's available, it's so nice. And so there's many times where I will teach and it's just simply like I'll just show up and tune into the space and then it's like, okay, this Kriya. And then I just like go through my phone, let's find the file, there we go. As opposed to like planning ahead, where which is what I used to do. I would say maybe the first 5 years of teaching.
Hmm.
But at this point, pretty much it's just like just tune into the group.
Right. That's my approach too. I like to, for me, the less planning, the better it usually goes, you know.
Mm.
It just allows for that flow, and I leave some space for adjustments, depending on how people are doing. And
Humans plan and Buddha laughs behind you.
right, exactly, man. It's really it's a good way to do it. And I mean, with Sat Nam Rasayan, I feel like it requires full presence, right? Like, would
Yeah.
you agree with that? Like that practice in particular, if the mind starts to wander, it starts to you have to bring it back. And the most proficient and most powerful practitioners are just fully 100% present when they're
And
in it.
it's a subtle thing. It's just like it's actually becoming so present that even if the mind is wandering, you observe the mind wandering.
Ah, yeah.
You don't change it.
Right. Right.
And when I was passing my like first level Sadhana Science certification, um I was surprised. I didn't think I would get nervous because I had been in rooms with Guru Dev here and there over many years. And so I think this was maybe 2016 that I tested with Guru Dev. Um, and so we go into the room, and all of a sudden I get really nervous. I'm like, why am I so nervous? And then they're like, okay, work on this patient. So I'm working on them, and my heart is racing. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm so nervous. And I was like, okay, I can't change this nervousness right now. I'm just going to observe myself being this nervous.
Mm.
And then as soon as I observed myself being nervous, he's like, oh, good, you got it. Okay.
And you were done
Yeah, and I was
with
done.
that
I,
portion.
I passed.
Oh,
Yeah, I
great.
passed. As soon as I,
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I never got the honor to be in Gurudev's presence, but I've watched online videos and I think I even watched maybe a live one time when he was still on the earth plane. But
yeah.
who's who's the main who's the main Sat Nam Rasayan, like the lead now in the world?
Well, the current master that Guru Dev assigned is Sadhu Singh. And
Okay.
Sadhu's wonderful. He lives in Vienna, Austria, and he teaches a lot in Mexico and throughout Europe. So if you
Okay.
ever get a chance to connect with him, his classes are great. I was able to take his class out in Mallorca at Sadhana Work Studio. And but beyond Sadhu Singh, there's many great Sadhana Rasayan teachers around the world. And I'm not sure who he's studying with, but my friend Pavanjit's studying with someone in Mount Shasta right now,
Oh wow. Okay.
the level two Sat Nam Rasayan training. So there's lots of, and then in Canada, Kulmeet's a great Sat Nam Rasayan teacher. I don't know if Mahani is still teaching in LA Sat Nam Rasayan, but there's a lot of great teachers around the world and so many different programs that you can find.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's really good to know for our listeners. And the prerequisite for that would be to go through the level one Kundalini yoga training, right?
No, no, actually,
Oh, okay. Okay.
surprisingly not. Like anyone can join. As I mentioned, it's not like not everyone gets it,
Right.
you know. But I
Yeah.
would say that definitely doing Kundalini yoga can help. But there is like a certain subtlety to Sat Nam Rasayan. And but some people are blessed to not be subtle in this lifetime and they can do powerful things
Right.
otherwise, other directions.
Right. Right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because it's kind of like that yin yang,
Yeah.
it's like there's people that are really tuned in and really sensitive to energy, um, which I believe I am and I believe you are. And then there's other people that uh just navigate differently but just as powerfully, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
their gifts just look a little bit different. They can go into spaces and not be as sensitive. They can like get blasted with 5G and feel great, they can alchemize it. It's like a different form of
Yeah.
alchemy. They can
Yeah.
ground it in, or there's different, everybody has different abilities. um
Yeah.
do you feel one thing that's coming through that I'm really curious about is like siddhis, right? Like the different types of siddhis that people can activate. And I know Yogi Bhajan would say don't get distracted by those, right? But have you noticed anybody activating some of their siddhis, or eh, let's talk about what a siddhi is. Like, how would you define it?
Well, with the cities, these are basically just powers
Hmm.
that are cultivated from the practice, and this is like from the Vedas, that in general, just yogic as well as even a meditative path can awaken these latent abilities within people.
Hmm.
And like, there's a story of Rumi, for example, and Rumi looks at a flock of birds. And Rumi is the Sufi poet. And Rumi looks at a flock of birds and he looks at the birds and he says, die. And then they all die. They fall down to the ground. And he says, come back to life. And they come back to life. And he was so pleased with his ability. And then
Mm.
he comes to a village and there's a woman. Do you know the story with the
No,
well?
no.
Okay, so he goes to a village and there's a well, and there's a much older woman, and she's taking water from the well and throwing it onto the ground. And
Oh
she's
wow.
doing it kind of like feverishly. And he just looks at her like, what's going on? And she looks at him and she's like, help me. And she's so commanding. He starts helping her, throwing water from the well on the ground, like, no time to talk, just keep throwing the water.
Right.
And then at the end, when it's finally done, she's like, okay, we've done it. And he's just like, what were we doing? And she's like, oh, we were saving the village from burning. She's like, this is why we get abilities is to help others, not to tell birds to die and come back to life.
Hmm. Right. Right.
Mic drop, mic drop, mic drop.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Because
It's like,
she wasn't there when he did the bird thing, so he was definitely like, okay, wow. So it's like that's what the idea of cities is, because they can be cultivated from all the traditional paths of yoga, from Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Kundalini Yoga. But ultimately, when one cultivates these powers, they can either be tools and distractions of the ego, or we can use them as just a platform for elevation, moksha, liberation.
hmm hmm
And so the powers seem cool, of course, like, oh, wow, walking through walls, or, oh, I can win pick the lottery numbers. But uh, does it make one become more entangled with the polarities of this world? Or does it help you to rise above those polarities to help others rise above those polarities? And that's ultimately the challenge that comes when certain CDs develop. But the CDs can just be like, one cultivates the power to be steadier in their life.
hmm
One can cultivate the power to be a little bit more joyful in their life, or more optimistic, or um, have more powerful blessings they can send others, or some developing healing abilities. But yeah, others may start to see auras and all these other distractions and tools, which are cool, definitely. Uh,
hmm
but but it's not the goal. Or it
Right.
can be the goal, but it's just like it's kind of like a limited goal. Like,
Yeah. Because I mean, there's people that are one thing that I've learned and am continuing to learn is that some people are here to ascend and to reach those higher levels. Most of those people have old souls that have been coming back to earth many, many times. And then other people may be newer souls and they may just want to play in Maya, which is the illusion, right? Like they just may want the experience of having wealth and power or whatever it is that their soul wants in this lifetime to grow and evolve and to have these experiences. Um, and it seems as though those things are just very like somewhat unfulfilling to a degree, right? It's like run by the ego. It's not fulfilling the soul on a deeper level. It may fulfill some sort of desire in this lifetime, but the deeper, like you were saying, like deepening joy, deepening being optimistic, like those kind of things, would help so many people around the world right now, because just being okay with where they're at, and there's an empowerment piece to that. Like we I believe we chose all the experiences that we have because they allow for the other ones to grow and for us to teach from those experiences and to evolve from that.
yeah, yeah. It's the idea of we're each given a contract,
Right.
and so then it's just our mission, if we choose to accept it, is to accept our own kind of divinity or sovereign inner sovereignty that exists inside of us. And that requires us to use these tools to become like the tool. When I say tools, like with meditation, with the yoga, all these things that to help strengthen our meridians, our channels, to
hmm
help strengthen our nervous system, our glandular system, to help with the clarity of our mind. So that way we can become less entangled with this like constant play of polarities, us
Right,
versus them.
right, right. And understand the oneness of it all, and that, it all comes from one source.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I'm really curious about your travels in India. I know you've been to India many, many times. Have you been in the presence of any fully enlightened beings?
I've definitely been in the presence of fully luminous beings, I would
Okay,
say. In terms of enlightenment, I don't know. It's like that word can have so many different meanings. Like and I think it also just depends on your philosophy. For me, it's just like I see enlightenment as a sense of like if one is fully done with their karma, so to speak, or the personal things to work on in this lifetime, they get to leave.
okay,
They don't have to stay. They don't have to stay on this plane anymore.
right,
There could be, 6D, 5D, but they don't have to be here
right,
in the
right.
3D world that we're in. And so with that enlightenment, I kind of take it more in a sense of like, okay, we all are sparks of light and divinity. And for have I met individuals that are able to clearly shine their light forward into this world? Absolutely.
Hmm.
And do they still go to the bathroom? Absolutely.
Right.
Do they still have their yin and their yang? Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
But I've been able to meet so many people who've touched me on the path, inspired me on the path, just by sharing their light, by being an instrument like a gemstone, letting the light shine through. So in that sense, yeah, I've definitely met enlightened people on this path.
Okay, okay, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, enlightenment is a really interesting term nowadays. Like, there's so many ways to define it, right? And
Yeah.
I guess my question is more around like somebody like a Yogananda or a Babaji, or the people that are in worldly known to have reached enlightenment, that have reached this space where they can reach those really high levels of samadhi. They can like be fully present. They're like here, and yeah, I guess that kind of energy, right? Like somebody who's just like such a such a big presence that they teach just with their presence, and people are able to feel their peace and their tranquility and their I guess it is what you were saying. I believe it is what you said, where it's like they've cleared all that karma, and they can just teach with their presence, where they're just like fully um fully themselves, and also able to like emanate this peace out from themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I would say I find that even in the space of like even the most how would I put it, the most tumultuous person. Well, and this is like one of the magical things of Kundalini Yoga. As soon as they tune in, and this is not every case, but but many cases where I've seen like where I know the person personally, and I
Hmm.
know them in a very tumultuous space of their life, and as soon as they tune in and they center themselves with the Adi mantra, Om Namo Gurudev Namo, and they're able to kind of like it's not check out, but they're able to become an instrument
Uh-huh.
and just let their presence be in that space that's personally, but impersonal,
Uh-huh.
and let that authenticity shine through in those moments and have such a powerful and healing field around them. Absolutely. And that's one of those things that I wouldn't say it's unique to Kundalini Yoga, but definitely um, is more present there.
Uh-huh.
And I've also met people from other traditions, the same thing that maybe they've taken a much longer route to get there, but the same dynamic where you can still have the challenges of being the human experience, but there's such a devotion that moves through them. There's such a dedication and devotion and seva service that moves through them that is just even being in their presence is a transformative experience.
Hmm.
And it's something that's also like I mean, where it's also challenged in this age is that we are all Piscean. Like we were all born in the Piscean age. It's only like what the 11-year-olds and younger who are actually truly the Aquarian children.
Uh-huh.
And so, as the Piscean dynamic is that we want these gurus, we want these strong spiritual leaders to bless us with their darshan so that we can be initiated and achieve some type of new advancement in our spirituality. But this age is more about what are you vibrating? How are you working on yourself? And how you work on yourself, how you master your own vibration is the teachers, the leaders that you will attract to walk side by side with you.
Right. Absolutely. I love that perspective, and I'm getting chills again in my body because that's like confirmation from a higher place, right? And
Mm.
I've felt that way my whole life, right? Like I didn't have in the beginning during my awakening, I didn't have any teachers. When I was younger, I didn't have any teachers. Um, I prayed for them, and a lot of them came at different periods of my life, right? And then my perspective on life is like I want to experience all the different teachings and then take what resonates and what aligns for me and then make it something of my, like, not my own, but combine it into its own way that only every individual brings out themselves, and
Mm.
everybody has a different combination of kind of what you were saying with the teachers in New York, right? Like everybody had their specific beautiful teachings and beautiful energy that allowed for their specific way to teach and impact the planet.
Yeah,
And I used to think when I was young, even in my 20s, I used to think, oh, in order to make a change, you gotta have a huge revolution with hundreds of thousands of people walking the streets, and you gotta be in the front of that, or you gotta be like Martin Luther King standing in front of in Washington, D.C., in front of hundreds of thousands of people. But what I'm realizing is like, there's so many ways, like just impacting one person has a ripple effect on the whole planet because that person tells this person or shares it with this person, and then they go and spread it, and it just like it's like a web, and we're all intertwined in it. And it's really beautiful to see because when we do the work inside ourselves, that ripples out and affects the frequency that we are in this reality, right? In this on this planet. COVID was a great example of that, right? Where you could see people in a lot of suffering and a lot of fear and worry, and then you had other people that were working on themselves that were just like loving and just having the best time of their life because they had all this free time, they had all this time to create and be with their close friends and family, and even go to nature where where there was nobody around, and
yeah,
all these animals started to come back into these places, and it was like Earth got a little rest, you know?
Yeah, some places for sure.
Yeah. 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 It was, I mean, that was a great example of that inner work, right? Like it reflects out
Yeah,
in our reality, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah. I just I'm so the cities fascinate me, you know? I feel like I want to come back around to that one more time. Like a lot of the qualities that Jesus possessed, people would consider cities, right? Like he could walk on water,
Well,
which is
yeah,
like
he
a
was a yogi.
levitation.
Yeah, he. I was just actually. I just recently went to one of the caves he was meditating in India.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because the three wise men were yogis, and so when he
Okay.
was 10 years old, they came back for him, and they took him through this journey that led him to India. And it's you see Jesus always with the mudras, the hand
Right.
positions.
Right.
Yeah, the blessing, the you just CD to bless.
What was your experience like in that cave? Did you feel
Uh,
anything?
yeah, yeah, it's definitely it felt very potent. It felt like there was definitely a lot of high energy there.
Wow. Just talking about it, I can there's some transmission that I can feel from that. That's really powerful. Is there any records or any um scriptures there of how long he meditated there or anything like that?
That I didn't look more so into like the information side. I was
Okay.
just more so like kind of riding the energy wave, like, okay, I know this and let me go to this place and feel it. But I didn't do any like research into like logistics and how long he spent there and
Okay.
yeah.
And did you get a chance to meditate in there?
Yeah. I got a chance to meditate in and it was definitely beautiful because it's also in the water.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So there's water in the cave.
Yeah, you to go into the cave, you have to go into the water.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. And which part of India is it in?
It's north of Rishikesh. Like I would say it's maybe 90 minutes north of the city Rishikesh.
Okay. And Rishikesh is at the base of like
The Himalayan.
the Ganges River starts there, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the Himalayan mountains too.
Okay. Okay. And so
So you have nice, cold, refreshing water.
right, like coming right out of the earth, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And Rishikesh is known as one of the most spiritual, would you consider it a city or a town?
Yeah. Rishikesh is a beautiful city and it's completely vegetarian, no alcohol is allowed.
Okay.
And it's a place where people find a lot of refuge to connect with spirituality, to connect to yoga, connect to meditation. And modern day is just like you name a style of yoga, you can find it there. You can find a training there.
Okay. Okay. And that's where you guys just did a training, right? For Kundalini
Yeah,
Yoga?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, with Gurmukh. And I've been teaching part of Gurmukh's teacher trainings since I met her in 2000 and I think I met her in 2008.
Okay.
And at that time, I think Satya still owned Golden Bridge, New York. And so then Gurmukh must have bought it 2008, 2009. And then that's when I met her because I was actually teaching healing circles in Golden Bridge. So so went from Universal Forest, went to the East West Books, and then I also started teaching healing circle at Golden Bridge. And then I remember walking down for one class, and there was Gurmukh. And I was walking down with a student who had just taken the class, and I'm like, "Hi, Gurmukh, nice to meet you." And she was like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And she looks at the guy next to me, and she's like, "Did you just take his class?" And he's like, "Yeah." She's like, "How was it?" And he's like, "Oh, it was great." And she just looks at me. She's like, "How often are you teaching here?" I was like, "I'm teaching this one class a week." She's like, "Oh, let's get you on the schedule more."
Okay. So she
And so then,
recognized you right away.
Yeah, and so then I another it was very kind of interesting coincidences because another teacher in New York, Huddy Carr, she had just really recommended that I go on this path to go deeper as a teacher and actually start assisting in teacher trainings because she's like at a certain point there's only so much that you can grow just teaching on your own, kind of like the Wild Wild West. There's a
Uh-huh.
lot of reinforcements that happens when you start assisting in teacher trainings. And, it's absolutely true. So then I was thinking of asking Gurmukh, can I assist in teacher training? Before I could even think of asking, though, I get an email from the manager and it was just like, hi, honey, Gurmukh wants to see if you'd like to assist in the teacher training. I was like, oh, great. Yes.
Nice and easy. Wow, that's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. And what
Yes,
year
I
was
think that was
that?
a 2009. I think that
Okay.
was 2009, that teacher training. And then in like 2010, because I was in Chinese medicine school 2008 to 2013. And wait, no, that's not right. Is that right? Wait, one, two, three, four. No, I was in Chinese medicine school from 2009 to 2013.
Okay.
And I think 2009. But then in that training in 2010, Gurmukh was just like, "Oh, you're an acupuncturist. Why don't you teach Western anatomy?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, wow, okay." And so she's like, "Okay, so just 3 hours teach Western anatomy." And I was like, "Okay." So I planned the whole night, planned. And then I get there, and then she's just like, instead, just like literally a few minutes before I'm about to teach, she's like, "Instead, no, 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 only 2 hours, and not Western anatomy. Teach the chakras instead."
Ha!
And I was like, "Oh, okay."
I love
And I loved
Gurmukh.
it because
That's amazing.
because me with my engineering mind is just like, okay, I have the plan and the system XYZ, and
Uh-huh.
that forced me to not teach from here,
Uh-huh.
or like the intellect, the monkey mind, but just to teach from the flow.
Right.
And thankfully, I was well studied enough that I could
Uh-huh.
deliver the material from the book, but also like give them some insights beyond it. So it was a great lesson for me, and that's how it was, at least back then, working with her. And then over time, because I graduated Chinese medicine and became an acupuncturist 2013, and then it was from there that because I had the idea, this was my plan,
Uh-huh.
was to open up a practice in New York City, a Chinese medicine practice. And Gurmukh was just like, "Oh, why don't you come with us and teach here?" And I was like, "Oh, I can't because I'm opening up a practice." And other people were inviting me to other countries, and I was like, "I can't. I'm gonna open up a practice." And then Gurmukh just was like, "Amanbir, we need you to come to India to help with the teacher training and to teach in it." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "Good. Then after that, we're gonna go to Russia and South Africa."
Wow. Ah,
And then ever since then has been traveling around the world, not only with Gurmukh, but with other teachers and being invited on my own to different places. So that's been like a blessing, and like still to this day, what's it, 2024, still traveling around. So yeah,
wow.
so every year now there's a teacher training in Rishikesh with Gurmukh Rishabh and myself. Um, and then we have a group of assistant teachers that are wonderful that help us with the course.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. And that brought back this, I mean, that's profound. I love that story. I think it's really amazing how that all unfolded for you and it continues to unfold, and that reminds me of how the powerful work we did in Chichen Itza together.
Mm,
Where we went and we helped to clear the energy in the main cenote there, and we did a little ceremony there with crystals and cleared out a lot of that energy. And for the first time in 3 years, the Quetzalcoatl, the energy of the dragon serpent appeared on the side of the temple there. And for 3 years during COVID, it had two chances a year on the solstices to appear, and that was the first time it appeared after we did that clearing. So that was some really powerful work we did together. And as you were talking and traveling to all these places, it's like you're anchoring your light and you're doing grid work in those places just by being there. And so I wanted to honor you in that, and to thank you for that, because that's I feel passionate about that work at some point down the line in my journey as well. And with the different travels I've been doing, I feel as though that kind of work is really important for the planet.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like that's the age of Aquarius. It's just like we're vibrating a certain thing, and that's how we're able to become friends. It's just like, okay, let's do the work together. Hey,
Right. I mean, I've met you, I
I see
think.
you, see you.
Right, right. I met you
And
like
your friends were interesting because one of your friends was the I forget his name, but he's a breatharian. You remember who came?
right, right. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was a friend of a friend, actually, and that was really interesting to meet him too. Yeah, that so breatharian is somebody who doesn't, like, they barely eat. They just have like coconut water. And what I don't remember what he would. Do you remember what he said about
No,
his practice?
no, he doesn't even have coconut water. He only has water and urine and breath work.
Okay. Okay,
That's
yeah,
the only thing he consumes.
that was a friend of one of the friends that came. But yeah, that was
Yeah,
fascinating to meet him, and he helped with that ceremony too. And we had a little one, like 4 or 5 years old, maybe 3 years old, that was holding down that Aquarian generation that you're talking about.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so that was really cool. And yeah, that was a really interesting group of people that came together just for that time. And I one of the things that I feel really passionate about is going to the seven chakras of the planet. So like Mount Shasta is one of those, Lake Titicaca is one of those, and in I think it's in Bolivia, or on the border of Peru and Bolivia. It's down there. Another one is Mount Kailash. Have you been there? Am I pronouncing that
Mount
right?
Kailash. No, no, I've never been actually though.
Okay. Yeah, that's another one that I really that's supposed that's in Tibet, right?
Hmm.
I think that one's in Tibet. Then in Australia they have this giant mountain in the middle of the country, like right in the middle. That's another chakra. Um, Stonehenge is supposed to be another chakra. Have you been there?
No, I haven't been to Stonehenge.
Okay.
Not
All
yet.
right. So maybe we can start to plan some of these activations for people, and do some of these powerful practices in these locations at some point down the line, because those these are energy centers of the planet, like
Yeah,
where I believe we that there can be a really strong anchoring of light for the planet, and
yeah,
that work is really important. I know there's different groups that are doing it, and and so it's happening. It's just the more people do it, the more powerful it'll be.
yeah,
Do you feel called
yeah.
to
Let's
that
see.
work as well?
Yeah, I guess through through the work that I've been doing is just yeah, that it definitely feels aligned. Like with helping people around the planet is just like I don't know, I think that's the way. It's just like helping more and more people to become the crystals, so to speak,
Right, right. Like
along the grid.
crystallizing their body, making it more of that instrument that you were mentioning earlier, like allowing for the great mystery or spirit to move through the individual, to impact others in whatever ways are most beneficial for them, to heal
Yeah,
right? And that doesn't it looks so different for every individual.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
beautiful, man. I like, big bows to you, man. Thank you for all the work you do around the world, and I'm so proud of you. I see you, brother, and thank you so much for coming on today, and for sharing your light, for sharing your wisdom, and maybe down the line we can do a part two.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I
Yeah,
look
man.
forward to it, brother,
Yeah,
and
thank
look
you
forward
so
to
much. Yeah, big love
seeing
over
you.
there.
Yeah,
Good to
lots of love to you in Vegas. Okay.
thanks a lot, man. Sending lots of love and we'll talk soon, man. Sat
Okay,
Nam.
talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay, Sat Nam.